Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Disabled orphan whispers, "I'll never be elected." Billionaire stood up and said only one thing. In a small industrial town in the American Midwest, with streets lined with rusty old factories and modest houses, lived a young woman named Emily Parker. His story was one of silent struggle and daily courage. Emily had lost her parents at the age of 8 in a tragic car accident. Her hardworking parents had always dreamed of a better future for their daughter. But this cruel fate had cut them down prematurely. The accident had left Emily with partial paralysis in her legs. Since that day, she had been unable to walk. Her life had been reduced to a wheelchair, and her world to limits many would have thought insurmountable. She was placed in a foster home, a place where children who had also been mistreated by life were taken in. In this home, laughter was rare, hopes often stifled. Children, like Emily, were often invisible to society. Yet, despite the cold walls and lonely nights, Emily kept a light within her, a huge dream, to change her community, to make her city more humane, more just. She wanted no one to be forgotten as she had been. The years passed. Emily grew up surrounded by children from all walks of life, each with their own pain and struggles. She learned to read with passion, taking refuge in books as if in secret havens. Each page turned was a window onto a future she wanted to conquer. At 24, Emily worked at the public library, a haven of peace in a city hard hit by unemployment and industrial decline. She knew every corner, every reader, every story. Her days were punctuated by the rustling of pages and the whispers of visitors. But in her heart beat another melody, that of commitment, of the fight for social justice. One autumn evening, the town hall hosted a public meeting. The air was charged with electricity as residents gathered in the municipal hall, some out of curiosity, others out of skepticism. It was the first time Emily would speak in public, not just to speak, but to run as a candidate in the upcoming municipal elections. In her hands, she held a small piece of paper, her speech, which she had written and rewritten hundreds of times. Her fingers were slightly tense around the sheet. The spotlight illuminated her face, marked by fatigue and determination. When it was her turn, she blushed slightly, took a deep breath, and stepped towards the microphone. "My name is Emily Parker. I was born and raised here, in this city that I love despite its challenges. I've seen our community go through hardships, factories closing, families struggling to make ends meet. I've seen families like mine, broken but still standing, fighting tirelessly." Her voice trembled for a moment, but then she regained her confidence. "I want to be the voice of those who are not listened to, of those who are forgotten in the dark corridors of our city. I want to defend our rights, our schools, our environment, and above all, our dignity." An icy silence fell over the room. A few people whispered, exchanged judgmental glances. A harsh voice, laden with contempt, rose from the audience. "How can a girl in her condition run a city?" Another murmured, with a hint of bitterness. "She's a lost cause. She'll never get elected." Emily felt her hands begin to tremble, her legs twitching beneath her. She looked down, overwhelmed by the weight of these words, of these looks. Her voice, barely audible, escaped like a broken breath. "I will never be elected." The walls seemed to close in on her, and hope flickered. But at that very moment, somewhere in the crowd, a light was dawning. A man was about to shatter the heavy silence and change the course of her destiny forever. In the room, sitting at the back, almost hidden by the crowd, was William Anderson, a man whose name alone was enough to raise eyebrows or make the ambitious dream. The founder of a technology empire built through years of hard work, William was the epitome of the American dream. But what few people knew was that he was born in a working-class neighborhood in a similar city, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs and never knew rest. He had spent his childhood mending broken things, selling newspapers, and silently observing the pain of those no one noticed. Perhaps that was why, when he heard Emily speak, he saw not a disabled young woman in a wheelchair, but a familiar flame, the flame of those who had suffered too much to cheat, and yet rose again, carried on by a force the world knew nothing of. When he heard the muffled mockery and the phrase, "How can a girl in her condition run a city?" A shiver of indignation ran down his spine. Then came Emily's whisper, broken, fragile. I will never be elected. It was the last straw. William Anderson stood up slowly. Despite his 75 years, his stature commanded respect. His face, weathered by the years, expressed both wisdom and firmness. He walked slowly forward, leaning on a black cane with a silver knob. Silence fell immediately over the room, as if suspended. Arriving at the microphone, he calmly adjusted it, raised his eyes, and swept the crowd with a straight and confident gaze. And he spoke, his deep voice resonating like that of a judge in a court of honor. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just heard is not just a candidate's speech. It is the heartfelt cry of a survivor of oblivion, indifference, and prejudice. He paused. His gaze lingered on the faces in the room, some ashamed, some curious, a few upset. When I was 8 years old, I cleaned the floors of a diner after school. I was told I was worthless, that a boy like me would never go far. I had no wheelchair, no parents, no roof over my head, just a burning desire to do better. He turned slowly to Emily, who was staring at him, her eyes misty with tears. Emily Parker won't just be elected. She'll be one of the best leaders this city has ever known. Because true strength isn't measured in miles walked, but in the willingness to walk against the wind, again and again, even when you're confined to a chair. He straightened up and concluded, shame on us if we continue to judge those who fight standing up, even sitting down. A shudder ran through the audience. First, a silence, like a sudden realization. Then, a woman in the front row began to applaud. Then a man. And gradually, the entire room, in a spontaneous burst of applause, applauded in unison. Emily felt a warmth rise inside her. It wasn't pride, nor arrogance, but a silent gratitude that she was no longer alone. The next day, a photo of Emily and William side by side went viral on social media. The caption read, "A voice was raised, and a city heard it." Publicly endorsed by William Anderson, Emily officially launched her campaign. But contrary to popular belief, this support didn't make things any easier. The criticism was fierce. Some said she was merely a symbol of compassion, not a real candidate. Others suggested William was manipulating public opinion with a media charity campaign. But Emily refused to be reduced to just an inspiring face. She wanted to earn the position. So she began a grassroots campaign, modest and without artifice. She visited every neighborhood, even those other candidates avoided. She shook hands with workers as they left factories, listened to single mothers at community centers, and spent hours in public schools, talking with teachers and students. She spoke little, but listened a lot. At every house she knocked on, she would simply say, "I'm Emily Parker. I don't have the money the other candidates have, but I have one thing no one can buy me: the belief that together we can transform this city." As the weeks passed, Emily saw what no televised debate could reveal: the fear in the eyes of an unemployed father, the silent anger of a lost teenager, the weariness of a former soldier forgotten by the system. Every voice fueled her commitment. Every hand placed on hers reminded her why she was there. She understood one essential thing. It was not her that she had to get elected. It was them that she had to make heard through her. And she swore to herself, no matter what, never again to whisper that she wouldn't be elected. Because at that precise moment, she carried within her the hope of all those who had never been listened to. The long-awaited day arrived. The usually quiet city seemed to vibrate with new energy. Flags, posters, name badges Emily Parker were visible on the storefronts, the windows of modest houses, the streetlights of the Central Avenue. There was a mixture of tension, hope, and nervousness in the air. Emily, for her part, was in a small community hall, surrounded by a few close friends, campaign volunteers, and William Anderson, silent, arms crossed, his gaze gentle but worried. Time dragged on. The results were slow to come in. Emily remained by the window, watching the street as if searching for a sign. "You did all you could," William whispered in her ear. "I know, but I'm scared. Not for myself. For all those people who have entrusted me with their voices, their stories. I'm scared of disappointing them." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever the outcome, you have already honored them." Then the door burst open. A young man entered, phone in hand, panting. The results, they're in. An absolute silence fell over the room. Emily Parker, 63.2% of the vote. The breath of a miracle. A suspended moment. Then the cries of joy exploded. Hugs, laughter, tears. Emily stood frozen, her eyes wide, her hand over her mouth. She couldn't believe it. She had just won the election with a landslide victory. Against all predictions. Against all whispers. Against fear. Later that evening, an impromptu gathering was held in the city's central square. Hundreds of people had gathered, some with children on their shoulders, others still in work clothes. Faces of all backgrounds, of all ages. Emily, still sitting in her wheelchair, was helped onto the makeshift stage. The spotlights shone softly on her. The crowd, moved, fell silent. She took a deep breath, felt the tears welling up, but held them back. She wanted her voice to be firm. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for trusting me. She paused. The flashes were popping. Some were already crying. Tonight, it's not just my victory. It's yours. The victory of all those who have been ignored, underestimated, excluded. It's the victory of hope over cynicism, of courage over fear, of truth over appearances. The crowd burst into applause. I have heard your stories, your pain, your dreams, and I make you a promise. As long as I am your elected representative, I will never let your voice be lost in silence. Together, we will build a fairer, more humane city where no one is left behind. From her first weeks in office, Emily refused to be swept away by accolades. She entered her new, unadorned office, surrounded by the same volunteers who had supported her. Her chair rolled silently across the polished wood floor, and she looked up at the city flag pinned to the wall. Then she got down to what she had promised. She threw Amajor accessible urban renovation program, requiring public buildings to comply with accessibility standards, not in 5 years. Building the year ramps, elevators, and adapted transportation became a municipal priority. She set up support centers for single-parent families and homeless children, inspired by his own experiences. A home was even named after his parents, the Robert and Hannah Parker Center. She mobilized funding for innovative educational programs in disadvantaged neighborhoods. She brought in speakers, mentors, writers, and scientists to inspire the city's young people. And above all, she remained present. Every week, she held open public meetings, without protocol, where any citizen could speak to her, face to face. It was said that she listened more than she spoke, and the residents had never experienced this. Emily's story quickly spread beyond the city's borders. Articles appeared in the New York Times, Time magazine, and even Forbes, which is titled, "The Power of a Voice: How Emily Parker Changed Local Politics with a Simple Truth." She was invited to speak at universities and testify before committees. But she consistently refused every offer of a national political career. "My mission is here at home," she said, "where no one else would listen." In schools, little girls in wheelchairs were beginning to dream big. In forgotten neighborhoods, people were beginning to believe again. Years later, at an event honoring pioneers of change, a man quietly approached her. It was William Anderson, now older, his voice a little weaker, but his eyes still bright. He shook her hand gently and said, "You've changed more than just a city, Emily. You've changed the way we look at strength." She answered him with a sweet smile. "All I did was refuse to believe that my voice didn't matter. And that day, William, you stood up for me. I'll remember that for the rest of my life." One evening, in her office, night had fallen on the city. From her office window, Emily watched the streetlights cast yellow halos on the wet sidewalks. The main avenue was almost empty, but a few silhouettes could be seen in the shadows. Late workers, students returning home, homeless people looking for shelter for the night. His office, simple and uncluttered, was silent. Only the ticking of the clock and the buzzing of his computer broke the peace. On his desk, stacks of files awaited him. Community projects, school reports, letters from citizens. Emily took off her glasses, rubbed her tired eyes, and then leaned back in her wheelchair. It was an evening like any other, filled with responsibility and silent doubts. Despite the victories, despite the respect she had earned, she still carried that nagging feeling. Am I doing enough? She opened her computer automatically to check her emails. And there, amidst the usual notifications, a name caught her eye. William Anderson. His hand shook slightly as he clicked. The message wasn't long, but each word echoed like a clap of thunder in the quiet of the room. You have proven that will is stronger than all obstacles. Keep changing the world, Emily. I believe in you. William. A shiver ran through her. This wasn't a simple compliment. It was an anchor, an affirmation that she wasn't alone, that at the top of this mountain she was climbing, someone had seen her every step, every injury, every victory. She let herself go for a moment, her eyes closed, her heart swelling. The memory of their first meeting came back to her like a movie. The room full of judgments, his downcast gaze, his broken voice, and this man who had stood up when no one else had. This message was not just an echo of the past. It was a beacon, a reminder that beyond the law's past, the successful campaigns, the applauded speeches, true power resided in the transmission of courage. That night, Emily realized she was no longer just a chosen one. She had become a living symbol, that of resilience, of reconstruction, of the fight against fatalism. She opened a notebook she always kept close at hand. On the first page, she wrote slowly, in neat handwriting, "Never believe that you cannot be elected, that you cannot be heard, that you cannot count. The world changes through those who dare, even when they tremble." Emily Parker. From that evening on, something changed in her. She spoke with more force, more clarity. She defended bolder laws. She took under her wing young women who also dreamed of politics, journalism, and teaching. She founded a scholarship for disabled orphans who wanted to pursue higher education. She sent them all a handwritten letter with a single message. If you think you can't, try anyway. I promise you, the world can listen to you. Emily. Years later, a statue was erected in front of City Hall. It depicted Emily Parker, depicted in her armchair, holding a microphone and a book on her lap. Under the statue, a sentence engraved in gold letters. "I will never be elected, and yet, I changed the world." And in schools, children repeated her name in civics class. Not as a politician, but as soft living proof that the will is stronger than circumstances.